Channel news. I got some fancy gloves so I can touch the phone and make it work even though I've got gloves on. Okay. I got excited seeing those. My name is Patrick. The channel name is Jack Crafty. Okay? So it's different from my real name. Yeah, I started the channel back in 2011. So I've been doing this a while. Okay. I did have some notes, but they're on my phone. But I read them over before I started. So, first off, I wanted to talk about the last video. I tried to explain something that was very difficult for me to explain, which was the low power strikes, low power hitting of the edge or pressuring the edge with low power techniques or whatever. I find it extremely difficult to explain the physics behind that kind of stuff. That's one of the reasons why I don't explain in depth when it comes to napping. I don't get it right. And I reviewed that video and I'm very frustrated with myself. And in order to get that right, I've got to write it down, what I'm going to say, and then I've got to analyze what I wrote down and then rewrite it and then try to explain it. And if it doesn't sound right saying it, I have to rewrite it again. And then when I make the video, I've got to go off my notes or I'll mess it up. So there's a long preparation process. And even with that process, I probably will get it wrong again because I'll miss one of the variables, or I'll add a variable that's insignificant, or I'll make light of one variable and it's not significant, and I'll say that one variable is very, very significant, but it isn't. It's very hard to get the physics correct. And in some areas, not even today's scientists understand exactly what goes on with some of these fractures. Okay, so even if I try my hardest and get everything correct, the science is not up to date anyway. So some of it is still guesswork. So even if I did it perfectly with the knowledge we have today, it could be wrong later on in a few years or whatever, a few decades or whatever, however long it takes. But I don't really want to get into that aspect, although I know it does help people. That is the hardest thing on this channel for me to do, is to get the physics correct on the napping. Yeah, I like that. I came out here quickly because I wanted to get the bells in the video, and I didn't bring my soup out. I was in a hurry. Anyway, so the physics behind the napping is something that is requested quite often. What are the angles? What are the forces? What's the vectors? What's the fracture mechanics? What are the material properties of both the tool stone and the tools that I use? What are the alloys, if any? Where can I get this specific type of pads? Or I know that's not physics, but it has to do with the techniques, and it is one of the variables in the napping, and it has to be incorporated into the physics. The pads, the support, the alloys of the metals that I use for tools. And if I wanted to get even more into the specifics, the moisture content of the natural materials, the exact composition of stones for hammer stones, what is the hardness, and a test to see how it crumbles when hit against certain objects, to see how crumbly a hammer stone is when using hammer stones as an example for flint napping. People want to know this kind of stuff because they want to know if it's them or the tools. Maybe they're not using any of the tools right. Maybe they got everything perfect, but they don't know. That kind of thing. It's not discussed very much. And if it is, it's usually wrong on YouTube, not just with my channel, but in general. There's a lot of things wrong with the physics involved with knapping. On this channel, on other channels, within scientific literature, within archaeology, everywhere. There's errors everywhere in that. And I don't suppose that I am qualified or trained or smart enough to correct all of that stuff, to give you exactly what you need to hear, because you need to hear the correct thing. If you are looking for the correct thing, you need to hear the correct thing, or it's going to mess you up. All right? With all that said, my advice to you is just to forget all of that, because none of that was known back in the day when a lot of these things were made in an almost perfect manner that we would consider perfect today. Like, how do they do that? If I could only do what they did, it'd be perfect. Even though it might be a little asymmetric or they made a few mistakes, it would be so much better than what I do. How do they do it? Well, they certainly did not have the physics available to them. Okay? It will not hurt you to ignore it all. In fact, it might benefit you, because if you follow the wrong physics, it won't help you. And a lot of the physics in today's knapping explanations is wrong, including the ones that I do. And the last video is not an exception. It's a demonstration of me fumbling, trying to figure out what exactly is happening while I'm doing it. The funny thing is I can do it without knowing what's happening. I'm just trying to explain it after the fact with the physics that I know. And with the math background that I have, try to incorporate as many variables as I can and how significant these variables are. But that's the kind of thing that gets me very, very frustrated, that I cannot do. And then I start to delve into it at the exclusion of everything else, when in fact it's not even important in knapping. Believe it or not, Native Americans made stuff like this without knowing anything about physics. All they had to do was practice, watch and practice, watch and practice. That's it. Watch and practice. You want to take a shortcut and don't want to practice very much, I understand. I didn't drink my water before I came out. But I understand you don't want to spend forever practicing, because a lot of you guys have retired and you only get maybe a few years of good muscle strength left, and you just want to speed up the process so you can enjoy knapping before you start getting all crotchety. I understand. I'm in the same boat. I can't be knapping forever. I would like to know what I can do to shorten the learning curve so that I can be more productive and produce stuff that I want to produce before I get too old and crotchety. Yeah, I get it. Some of you young guys, you want to get the experience doing this stuff quickly because next hunting season's coming up. You don't have all that much time. I mean, turkey season's coming up. Yeah. That kind of thing. I understand that. But you just have to devote more time per day to practicing and watching, practicing and watching. And I try to give you a bird's eye view and a first person view of what I'm doing so that you can position yourself like I'm positioning myself and using the tools. Now, I understand that not everyone can use the tools like I use in the way that I use them and have success using them. But keep in mind, even though I'm using the technique that I devised for myself, it took me a full year to get used to indirect percussion in the way that I do it, that I've developed, that I invented for myself. It took me a year to do that, just to get to the point where I can start making videos. I didn't do it so I could make videos. I started doing it, and then I got better quickly, because I was using indirect percussion, and said to myself, well, now I can contribute and post videos and then try to understand what's going on as well, because I can watch my own videos. And I did that in the beginning. I watched my own videos to see what was going on. It didn't help all that much, but it did allow me to see what others were seeing when they watched me do it, so I could help explain by understanding their point of view. It's hard to explain something to someone when you don't understand their point of view, or you don't see things from their point of view. You've got to see it from their point of view to figure out what to say or how to explain things. Okay? Okay. Yeah, these gloves help. It's my hands get very cold very fast. I'm getting old. That's not the theme of this video, though. I just wanted to start off with the explanation that I'm having trouble with the physics of Flintknapping. Not in doing, but in explaining it. The brain is very, very good at doing without understanding how it's actually doing it. You know what I mean? It learns from the doing, not from the reality or the physics or the mathematical formulas behind all this stuff. Okay? The human brain doesn't work that way. AI works that way. It must know the procedure, the algorithm, the mathematical formula, the logic progression, and all that before it can actually engage in a conversation, let's say. But humans don't do it that way. They observe, listen, and repeat. Observe, listen, and repeat, and practice. Observe and practice. Observe and practice. That's what we need to be doing as nappers. And I need to not get distracted and bogged down by all the physics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all that to the side, because I was getting into it this morning, driving myself nuts. I'm going to push that to the side and then concentrate on developing the skills that I want to develop without getting bogged down in the physics, and then just showing you my results through the napping, not through the explanations. Okay? So I'm telling you that because that's the direction of the channel. I can't take it in the direction of physics. I have to take it in the direction of just doing. Okay. However, I will be doing tests, which is a little bit different than the physics, right? It's just tests on penetration of stone points into targets compared to modern points and things like that. Building reproductions and then and telling you what they do. Like the bows, I'll do a reproduction of a Native American bow to the best of my ability with all the dimensions correct and all the materials correct, and then tell you how much it pulls as far as the draw weight, what I think the string height should be, because some of them are very low string height, some are very high string height. Some of the wood is very dense, some of it is not, that the bows were made from. How much does the bow actually weigh? How thick is the sinew strings and how thick are the rawhide strings? Do tests on these strings and try to pull them apart. Do humidity tests on them. How does it shoot in a 40 what is it called? 40% humidity compared to a 70% humidity firing of the bow with a natural string. The arrows, how much do they weigh? What are they spine at? Which source am I using to replicate this arrow? And I'll tell you the exact dimensions that I've come up with. They might not match exactly the Native American arrow, but I'm going to get as close as I can without actually holding the actual Native American arrow in the museum. I might be able to go to museums now that I have time to get the precise dimensions of every point on the arrow and the length and measure the weight down to grains, all that stuff. I can still do that, but that is mainly observation and shooting, demonstrating, and practicing. I don't get into the physics of all that stuff. I'm just observing, collecting the data. Same with my knapping. Going forward, I'm just going to be observing and collecting the data and without the physics. And I'll be shooting Native American arrow reproductions. I'll be using glues that I have researched that existed back in the day. I will be using pigments that I have researched that were used back in the day. I'll be using paint mixes on these things. I'll be using fletching. In some cases that match exactly what they use for fletching. And in other cases, since the feathers are usually illegal to possess if they belong to migratory or birds of prey feathers. If they are feathers from migratory birds or birds of prey, those are usually illegal to hold. Native Americans can hold those feathers, but other people cannot. Okay, because the birds are protected. But I can do research on bird of prey feathers. How soft are they? How long are they? And that kind of stuff. And find substitutes in that range and see if it makes a difference between a modern fletch and an ancient fletch. Like I'll set up a camera with good sound and shoot these arrows past that camera and see if there's a difference in the sound of the feathers or the fletching as the arrow passes the camera or the microphone to see if it's any quieter or any louder. That sort of thing. Okay, but that's just data collection. I'm not going to go into the physics of why it spins in a certain way or how that affects the flight. I'm not going to do slow motion. Well, I might do slow motion analysis of the Archer's paradox, but that requires equipment that does high-speed photography. I might not do that, but that's part of observation, so I might do that. But anyway, there's an Archer's paradox, there's a vibration of the arrow, there's the spinning of the arrow, there's the wind resistance of the arrowhead on the tip of the arrow. A lot of people I've seen on forums get all bent out of shape because people say, well, it doesn't matter what the shape of the arrowhead is like. It just flies according to the shaft dynamics and the fletching dynamics. And they're all, no, the arrowhead makes a difference. Yeah. Well, tests have shown that it doesn't, but it'd be better to demonstrate and show you and prove it to you. But still, not everyone's going to accept it. I know. But yeah, they won't accept it unless they have a mathematical formula that can be reproduced and proven, right? Get down to that nitty-gritty, but I'm not going to get down to that nitty-gritty stuff. If you don't believe it after seeing a demonstration, I can't do anything for you. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not going to try to get down into the details of the physics. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but yeah, I got better things to do, actually. To be honest, I got better things to do. Because I'll get too wrapped up in that, and I'll try to study that for days and days and days, and time will go by, and it's already Friday. Like in this case, I'm supposed to be doing these channel news things early in the week. Yeah, if I have a lot of time on my hands and something that takes up a lot of time, that's what I'll be doing. I can't be doing that. I've got back orders. I've got projects to do that I haven't been able to do for years that I have on my lists that I have never been able to get to because of other priorities. And I'm not going to get into this physics thing as a priority because it's going to mess up everything. Literally. I can tell it's going to. Yeah, and it was getting me frustrated during the video as well, so I got to drop it. All right, just, I beat it to death, but just to let you know. I beat the idea to death that I'm not getting into the physics. But I just want to let you know. Fair warning. But there will be plenty more yapping, yeah. Because, that's what makes it enjoyable for me. Other than a good result. The napping itself can be meditative, but only if it's easy, relatively speaking. Once it starts getting hard, it's just work. It can be enjoyable, but only if you've got plenty of rest, plenty of material that you're looking at and say, well, if I mess this up, no big deal. I'll get into the thinning that is very risky. And it's not a big deal because I'm rested. I'm not in a bad mood to start with, and I'm feeling good to start with. So, there's not much that can make me feel bad at this point, even if I smash this arrowhead to pieces because I'm trying to get it really thin. That sort of thing. That's not too bad. I can still be happy if I'm in the right condition, in the right mood. Okay. But again, I'd rather do the yapping and just the data and the humorous stuff and the silly stuff and the stupid stuff rather than getting bogged down in the physics. Okay. All right? Yeah. Okay. I feel better now. I feel even better if I click my pen. Yeah. Last week I said something about insanity. And basically it's the denial of truth. Insanity has a bad relationship with truth, okay? But insanity has a bad relationship with other things as well. It has a bad relationship with power. What can I say about insanity and power? Well, you've heard of Nietzsche, the philosopher, right? Maybe, maybe not. I don't recommend reading his stuff because he's very whiny. But if you do, he has good insight into the insane. He might not have known it, or he did know it but didn't want to say. But the will to power is something the insane have. The will to power. Okay? Having power and responsibility for normal people that are not insane is a burden. It is not something to pursue. It's something that they avoid because it's such a burden. And you can see this demonstrated in how people with lots of responsibility age quickly. People in positions of power age quickly. The ones that are not insane. Okay? The ones that are insane, they want to have control. They're what we used to call control freaks. All right? So that's what I can say about the insane this week. Yeah, they're control freaks. The ones that seek power for power itself are the ones that are least suited for those positions. Okay? Unfortunately, in these days, they gain power way too easily because of things like social media. Yeah. Unfortunately, the insane are very politically active. All right. But that's all I'll say this week about that. Okay. What else? Well, one more thing. Politics can infest and infect everything, including Flintknapping, which it does. And in our archaeology and in the data collection on archaeological sites, you can politicize data collection to support certain viewpoints and then suppress other data. Or mess it up on purpose. Or just you can mess something up on purpose without being involved just by not scrutinizing it. Okay? You can commission the collection of data, and then if you ignore the scrutiny, or if you fail to scrutinize, or if you fail to be very particular, That's an indirect way of suppressing the data because it'll be messed up. And then you'll go, oh, that's kind of a messed up data set. We did the best we could with what we had, but we're not going to use this part or that part. Okay? Yeah. You can indirectly suppress data that way. That's a political move to support certain other narratives or whatever. You can manipulate all kinds of stuff. And it's a political way of doing it because you're trying to gain favor through any means other than merit. Okay, political endeavors seek to gain influence, power, or responsibility by any means other than merit. Which means in the field of archaeology, you don't look at the data necessarily in the way that you should be. You'll cherry pick, which is a fallacy. And what they'll do is they'll cherry pick, which is not a logical procedure, to support certain narratives that gain attention, that spark interest, that gain funding, and that put people maybe in positions of authority because it sounds like they know what they're talking about. That sort of thing. We cannot let that to infect what we think. Well, I try not to let it affect what I think. So if you watch the channel, maybe you'll think the same way. Like you're going to ignore the political stuff and just work on focusing on just the data, and then learning how to interpret the data yourself, and then draw conclusions using logic that you've learned outside of all this other political nonsense. Okay, if you can understand how to interpret the data, you'll be way far ahead of many people in the field. Believe it or not, even people with advanced degrees. Yeah. You can read through some studies and you go, this is not following a logical progression. This is following a series of authors who have said this and that with their authority, and they're just quoted over and over again, even though some of those things may be outdated or debunked or insufficient for the level of importance they put on it. Okay? It might be okay, but doesn't rise to the level of some of the explanations that need to be given. They leave out a bunch of stuff. In many cases, the guys that are being quoted have only researched part of the problem. So it's insufficient to understand the whole problem. For example, okay? There are many different kinds of ways to fail in the research. Okay. Why do I talk about that stuff? Because it takes some of my time looking into this stuff. Why do I look into it? Well, just to answer questions. Yeah. I have questions, and then people ask me questions, and I go, okay, I'm off to the races trying to answer a question, and I try to look for it or try to remember what I've read, and I'll try to find the data. Okay. And I also try to generate my own data. I've been generating my own data through my videos. Okay. And I'll continue to do that. All right. I think that's it. 29 minutes. Usually by 30 minutes, I'm starting to get too cold. Even though I dress up for it. Probably because I'm just sitting and all the blood's going to my brain and not to the other parts of my body. I'm trying to think here on the fly, which is not that easy. It's not that easy to organize my thoughts because I'm scatterbrained. And my mouth-to-brain connection isn't that good, so I've got to speak to myself first before I can say something if I want to make sure it's correct. Is that correct? And then I listen to see what I just said. Because sometimes, even though I'm thinking something and I say something, and I think I said something, I actually didn't say that. I said something else. It's a weird thing. Yeah. And I do that in my napping too. And I noticed I did that last night in that video. When I said energy when I should have said something else. I kind of use the terms power, energy, and force and all that interchangeably when I should be actually writing this down, looking up what physics is actually using for those things I'm trying to talk about. What terminology is used in current physics for this or that? And use those terms instead of trying to use a lot of terms interchangeably. Yeah, it drives me nuts, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I didn't need this today. I have my notes on my phone and I read them before I started the video, so yeah. Although it's good sometimes to look through here, maybe I missed something. Yeah, no, I didn't miss anything. I already went over that stuff last week. Okay, so I'll be doing more Obsidian. Yeah. So I know people want to see chert and flint, and I have a lot of requests. I'm surprised for doing more English flint. I figure, you've seen one English flint video, you've seen them all, but I guess not. I guess there's a lot of people in the UK that want to see more videos of their material, which is fine. But I need to do more Obsidian videos. Yeah. Why do I mention that when it's pretty obvious? It's because I might get into a situation where I'm doing only Obsidian for a couple of weeks. Because it's so hard to go back and forth. It is hard to go back and forth from Obsidian to chert, or it's Obsidian to flint. There is a different mindset, especially if I want to get a very difficult to obtain result. I can't be jumping back and forth. Okay. Same with chert. If I want to get a very specific, difficult result with chert or flint, I can't be jumping back and forth between that and Obsidian. So I may just start focusing on one material for a week or two and then switch. Yeah. Okay. That's all I can think of for now. I don't know if any squirrels walked by because I wasn't paying attention. My cat friend came by earlier, and I don't know if... We had a snow melt again. The temperature went above freezing today, and whatever patches were left are totally melted now. Some people in other parts of the country have a lot of snow right now. We're expecting to get some snow in a few days, maybe Wednesday. 2, 3, 5 more days, we should be covered with snow back here again. Which is exciting for me because that's one of the reasons why I moved up here, so I can have or experience winter. Yeah. Instead of only 2 seasons when I was living in the South. What are those seasons? Warm and hot. All right. That's it. There you go.